Hello everyone, George here, Catholic Positive Energy, coming to you now on Good Friday this week. Now, just in case there are some people here who may not be familiar, Good Friday is always a day that in the Catholic Church we honor 2 days before Easter Sunday, and it has nothing to do with the Easter Bunny. This is the day that our Lord Jesus Christ was crucified on the cross, and when he fulfilled the Old Testament covenants and prophecies, fulfilled them in the New Covenant, the New Testament. I could go on and on and on for hours, but that pretty much sums it up. This is my first time doing a broadcast on Good Friday, and I'm glad that I'm doing this because even though I am not quite a Catholic scholar yet, hopefully one day I will be, I'll tell you what I know. Now, Jesus, during his lifetime, was a Jew, and he, right before his crucifixion, he started his ministry when he was 30, he was crucified at the age of 33. And during his earthly ministry, he performed many miracles. He healed the sick, cleansed lepers, cast out demons. Things that a lot of people thought, oh wow, who is this man? He must be the Son of God. There were some other people who, during that time, it was blasphemy to consider yourself the Son of God or to consider yourself equivalent to God, which is one of the many reasons he was crucified. So when Jesus was crucified, he opened the gates of heaven. I could go into much deeper detail. Maybe I will in a future broadcast. But this is something that the devil did not want Jesus to do. He opened the gates of heaven because before Jesus did this, if you died in the Old Testament or prior to this crucifixion, you would have went into a holding place referred to in the Gospel of Luke. I believe it's in Luke 16, called Abraham's bosom. Now, it wasn't literally Abraham's bosom, but that was just the name for it. So, that's where you went. And until Jesus opened the gates of heaven, that's where these faithful souls who died with God, faithful to God, that's where they were until this happened. And our liturgical calendar in the Catholic Church is literally the life of Jesus. So as we start out Lent, beginning on Ash Wednesday, it culminates tomorrow on Holy Saturday, the ending of the Triduum. The Triduum began yesterday on Holy Thursday, continues on Good Friday, reaches its climax tomorrow night on Holy Saturday when people coming into the church through RCIA or RCIC, whatever you call it in your parishes, that's what we call it out here. People who are getting baptized, confirmed, and receiving their first communion coming into the church, coming into the Catholic Church. So that's what the whole purpose of all this is. Now, some of you may have heard Good Friday a lot, and I know even when I was in elementary school, I remember they would refer to this day as Good Friday, but obviously they didn't talk about, and I was in a public school, they didn't talk about Jesus or God or church, because, they don't do that in our public schools. I wish they would, but they don't. I don't know if they're still referring to this day as Good Friday in public schools, because I've noticed the way the world is, it's like they want to get further and further away from God and further from religion, further from church. I don't know if they're still referring to today as Good Friday in public schools. If they are, let me know. I would think that's great. And I remember when I was younger, whenever it was Good Friday, and I didn't completely understand what Good Friday was at that time when I was 11 years old. I remember we had a half day of school because of this. Now, I seriously doubt they're still doing this for people nowadays in this country. I hope they are, but it wouldn't surprise me. So, this is a day that we really give thanks to Jesus for opening the gates of heaven, for fulfilling the Old Testament covenants. And one thing I do know, and you're going to hear me quote this a lot. I mean, if you're somebody who knows me really well, who talks to me regularly, this is something I love to talk about, because I spent 5 weeks writing a wonderful paper in a previous course last November about this, and that's why it stays fresh in my mind. I'll never forget in Jeremiah 31 through 34, as one of my professors, Dr. Peter Brown, has instilled in me, Jeremiah 31 through 34 marks the beginning of New Testament theology. Now, the book of Jeremiah is in the Old Testament. That talks about the Old Testament promises and covenants to come later on, many years later, centuries later, in the New Testament, which Jesus fulfills in Luke 22:20, amongst other passages. But if you look at Jeremiah 31 through 34, that's what kickstarted this whole thing regarding Old Testament promises, Old Testament covenants that Jesus fulfilled on this day during his lifetime. Another good thing to look at. Hopefully you did learn something new from me today. I always want you to learn something new when I speak here. So, regarding Good Friday, I know there may be some folks out there, and I have met some, whether you're doing this at church or on your own at a friend's house, there are people who are really grounded in their faith, in their Catholic faith, or whatever faith you may be, and they would normally watch that movie, The Passion of the Christ, today on Good Friday, because that's what this is about. That's what happened on this day on Good Friday, years ago, as it talks about very deeply at length in the Gospel of John, as well as the other three Gospels, but more deeper in the Gospel of John. So I encourage you to if you are able to watch The Passion of the Christ, please do, because what we're celebrating and honoring today on Good Friday was that Jesus' passion, his crucifixion, his resurrection, and ascension into heaven. Or if you also would like maybe something that is a little toned down and not as violent, the movie Son of God. I remember I watched that when it came out in 2014 on Ash Wednesday, the beginning of Lent. I have that. That is a wonderful movie. It's not rated R, so the crucifixion scene won't be as brutal as the one in The Passion of the Christ, but I don't want to scare anybody. I don't feel that the crucifixion scene in The Passion of the Christ was a really awful thing. I mean, I didn't think it was really morbid. You can watch it. I don't think it will affect you, but that is what happened to Jesus when he was crucified. So, might not want little kids to watch it. Anyways, so those are good things to do on this day, on Good Friday. Hopefully you can get to Mass, and as I know, at least what they're doing in all the Catholic churches is during the procession, when the priest first comes in, they come into no music, because this is a day of sorrow. So, things for you to understand there. But yes, this is a day of sorrow. It's not a day of depression or devastation necessarily, although there is sorrow because of what Jesus went through and because this is when Jesus died. It can be, in a sense, a day of joy, not because Jesus went through those things, but because what Jesus did as an end result for us. That's the joyful part, not what he went through physically prior to being nailed to the cross. That's not the joyful part. The joyful part is what he did for us, being able to spend eternity with him in heaven. So, I hope you learned some wonderful things here on this Good Friday broadcast. I could talk more, but I think I would just be going on and on and on. And obviously, I don't want to go on and on and on. So I hope you enjoyed this. And I feel like now I'm caught up because, like I said, I didn't broadcast for about 2 weeks when I lost my voice several weeks ago. I think I'm caught up now. So I hope everyone here will have a happy Easter on Sunday. And like I say, I'm not referring to the Easter Bunny. That is a secular thing. But like I say, when you think of Easter, please don't think of the Easter Bunny or Easter eggs. Think of what Jesus did for us. That is the true meaning of Easter. It's a religious holiday. Okay? It's a religious holiday, so think of that. But please enjoy your Easter. I'll be back next time with our meditation and prayer broadcast. And hope you please give honor and praise to our Lord Jesus Christ and what he did for us on the cross. God bless you. Happy Easter. And remember, dignification is better than criticism.